My name is Vivian Caldwell. I am 38 years old. And I want to tell you something before this story even begins. I almost did not go to my sister's wedding. Not because I was angry. Not because we had fought. But because somewhere in the part of me that had learned over 30 years to read my sister the way you read weather, the way you feel the pressure change before the storm actually arrives, I knew. I knew what that invitation was. I went anyway. And what happened in that reception hall on a Saturday evening in October, in front of 214 people, is something that family has been reckoning with ever since. If you are new here, please subscribe right now and drop your country and local time in the comments. I read every single one. Now let me take you back to the beginning. Because this story does not start at the wedding. It starts 30 years before it. I grew up in a house in Virginia with parents who loved both of their daughters and somehow, in the specific way that families do without anyone deciding it, created a dynamic that shaped everything that came after. My sister Celeste is 2 years younger than me. She was the kind of child who understood instinctively how to be loved by adults. Not manipulatively, or at least not consciously. She simply had a gift for it. She knew how to ask questions that made grown-ups feel interesting. She knew how to cry in a way that made people want to fix things. She knew how to position herself at the center of any room without appearing to try. I was different. I was the kind of child who read during family gatherings. Who asked questions that made adults uncomfortable because they were too direct. Who felt things deeply and showed it rarely and spent a great deal of my childhood being described as serious. Serious. As if feeling things carefully was a flaw. My parents did not favor Celeste consciously. I want to be honest about that. But the architecture of our family was built around her emotional needs in a way it was never built around mine. When Celeste was upset, the whole house reorganized itself. When I was upset, I was told I was strong and I would figure it out. I figured out a great many things alone. By the time I was in my 20s, I had built a career in marketing, moved to Chicago, made a life that was genuinely and completely mine. I had a close group of friends, a small apartment I loved, work that challenged me, and a sense of myself that had nothing to do with whether or not I was the center of any room. Celeste had married young. Divorced 2 years later. Remarried. Divorced again. Each marriage and divorce had been a production, my family reorganizing around her grief, her joy, her needs, each time. I had watched all of it from a careful distance and said very little. Then she met Richard. Richard was a corporate attorney from Atlanta. Wealthy, polished, the kind of man who made my mother exhale with relief the moment she met him. He adored Celeste. He thought she was brilliant and funny and the most vibrant person he had ever known. He was not wrong about any of those things. Celeste was all of those things. She was also calculating in ways Richard had not yet had time to see. Their engagement was announced at Thanksgiving. My mother cried. My father made a toast. Celeste showed everyone the ring for 45 minutes. I congratulated her. I meant it. The wedding planning began immediately. It was the largest production our family had ever been involved in. 200 guests. A venue in Charleston. A dress that cost more than my first car. A rehearsal dinner the night before. A brunch the morning after. I was not asked to be a bridesmaid. Not a maid of honor. Not a bridesmaid. Not even a reader. I was invited as a guest. When I asked Celeste about it, she said warmly that she knew how busy I was. That she did not want to put pressure on me. That she wanted me to be able to enjoy the day without responsibilities. I accepted this. I filed it where I filed most things with Celeste, in the place where I kept things I understood but had not yet decided what to do with. 3 weeks before the wedding, Celeste called me. She wanted to tell me something, she said. Something she had been sitting with for a while. I want you to speak at the reception, she said. A toast. From the sister. It would mean so much to Richard's family to see how close we are. I was quiet for a moment. Celeste, I said. Are we close? A pause. Of course we are. We are sisters. I will think about it, I said. I thought about it for 3 weeks. About the history. About the pattern. About the way Celeste had always known how to position things so that my participation served her narrative and my absence made me look cold. If I spoke, it would be used as proof of closeness that did not exist in the way she would describe it. If I did not speak, I would be the difficult sister who could not put her issues aside for one day. I decided to speak. But I decided to say something true. The wedding itself was exactly what you would expect from a Celeste production. Beautiful. Impeccably organized. Every detail chosen at the top of every price range. The venue was a restored historic building in Charleston with high ceilings and long windows and the kind of lighting that makes everyone look like they are living inside a painting. The ceremony was emotional. Richard cried when he saw Celeste walk down the aisle. Celeste was radiant in her dress. My mother held my father's hand and wept quietly. It was, genuinely, a beautiful ceremony. I sat in the 3rd row and watched my sister get married and felt something I did not expect to feel. I felt hope for her. Real hope. Not the complicated, careful hope I usually carried about Celeste. Clean hope. The kind that says maybe this one will be the thing that steadies her. Maybe Richard is exactly what she needs. Maybe this is where it changes. I held on to that hope through the ceremony. Then the reception began. Cocktail hour first. 200 people in a beautifully lit room. Richard's family from Atlanta, warm, loud, welcoming in the way of large Southern families who treat every gathering like a celebration regardless of whether they know you. My family scattered throughout, my mother already in conversation with Richard's mother, my father near the bar talking to someone I did not recognize. I found a quiet corner near the windows and talked to a cousin I liked and ate the past appetizers and watched my sister move through the room the way she always moved through rooms, effortlessly, magnetically, making everyone feel like the most important person in the space for exactly as long as it served her. Then dinner was announced and we moved to the main hall. I was seated at a table near the back. Not the family table. Not near my parents. Near the back, at a table with colleagues of Richard's I had never met, facing away from the head table where Celeste and Richard sat. I looked at my place card for a moment. Then I sat down. I introduced myself to the people around me. I ate my dinner. I made conversation. I noted the seating arrangement the way I noted most things about Celeste. Carefully. Without reaction. The toasts began after dinner. Richard's best man went first, funny, warm, clearly had known Richard for years. Then Richard's sister, emotional, genuine, the kind of toast that makes the whole room feel something real. Then Celeste's maid of honor. A woman named Tara who had been Celeste's closest friend for 15 years. Tara's toast was elaborate and practiced and full of inside jokes and stories that positioned Celeste as brilliant and misunderstood and finally, truly seen by the right person. It was a good toast. The room responded warmly. Then the MC announced the sisters' toast. I stood up from my table near the back. 200 people turned to look at me. I walked to the microphone at the front of the room. I passed the head table. Celeste was watching me with an expression I recognized, the specific brightness of someone waiting to see what you will do with the moment they have given you. I picked up the microphone. I looked at the room. And then I looked at Celeste. My name is Vivian, I said. I am Celeste's older sister. I paused. I have been thinking for 3 weeks about what to say tonight. About what is true. About what is useful. About what this moment actually calls for. The room was very quiet. Here is what I know to be true. I looked at Richard. Richard. You love my sister completely. I have watched you with her and I have no doubt about that. You see her and you choose her and you are genuinely happy when she is in the room. That is not a small thing. That is everything. I paused. I also know this. I looked at Celeste. Celeste. You have spent your entire life being the center of every room you walked into. You are extraordinary at it. You always have been. And for a long time I thought that was the whole of you. The room had gone completely still. But I watched you tonight. I watched you walk down that aisle. I watched you look at Richard during the vows. And I saw something I have not seen from you before. I let that sit for a moment. I saw you forget the room. A breath moved through the space. For the first time in 38 years of watching you, Celeste, you forgot there was an audience. You were just looking at him. Just present. Just there. My voice was steady. That is new. And it is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen from you. I raised my glass. To Richard, for being the person who makes my sister forget the room. And to Celeste, for finally letting someone in far enough to make that possible. To the bride and groom. The room raised their glasses. There was a moment of silence that lasted perhaps 3 seconds. Then Richard's mother started crying. Then several other people. Then the applause started, and it was the kind of applause that has something real underneath it. I set the microphone down. I walked back to my table near the back. I sat down. I picked up my wine glass. The colleague of Richard's to my left looked at me and said quietly, "That was the most honest wedding toast I have ever heard." I thanked him. Celeste did not come to my table that evening. Not during the reception. Not during the dancing. Not during the cake. Her maid of honor Tara came to find me near the end of the night. She said Celeste had asked her to tell me that the toast was not what she expected. I told Tara to tell Celeste that was exactly why I gave it. Celeste called me 4 days after the wedding. She was not angry exactly. She was something more complicated than angry. She was unsettled. The way people are when something true has been said about them in public and they cannot decide whether to be grateful or furious. "People keep telling me it was the best toast of the night," she said. "I am glad," I said. "It was not what I wanted," she said. "I know," I said. "You wanted something that made you look a certain way. I gave you something true instead. I think in 20 years you will prefer the true version." A long silence. "You said I forgot the room," she said quietly. "You did," I said. Another silence. "Nobody has ever said anything like that to me," she said. "I know," I said. She was quiet for a very long time. Then she said, "Vivian, do you think we could have lunch sometime? Just us. Not a family thing. Just lunch." I thought about that for a moment. "Yes," I said. "I think we could." We had lunch 3 weeks later. It was the first real conversation we had ever had. Not performance. Not positioning. Just 2 women at a table in Chicago talking about their actual lives. It lasted 4 hours. I drove home afterward and sat in my car outside my apartment for a long time. I thought about the 38 years before that lunch. About all the things that had been performed instead of said. About all the rooms Celeste had filled and I had watched from the edges. And I thought about one moment at a reception in Charleston when my sister looked at a man she loved and forgot, for the first time, that anyone was watching. I had meant every word of that toast. Every single one. It has been 2 years since that wedding. Celeste and Richard are still married. Still, as far as I can tell, genuinely happy. Richard calls me occasionally to ask for advice about how to handle certain situations with Celeste. I give it honestly. He appreciates the honesty. Celeste and I have lunch every 6 weeks. Not every week. Not constantly. But regularly. Carefully. Building something neither of us had the language for when we were younger. My mother told me 6 months after the wedding that the toast was the talk of both families for weeks. That Richard's mother had called it the most moving thing she had heard at a wedding in 40 years. I did not need to hear that. But I am honest enough to admit it was good to hear it. The thing about saying something true in a room full of people is that it does not just land on the person you are speaking to. It lands on everyone. And sometimes what it lands on in the people around you is the thing that changes the room permanently. I had not planned to change anything that evening. I had only planned to say something true. As it turned out, that was enough. Before you go, I want to ask you something. Have you ever been in a room where the easy thing was to perform and the hard thing was to simply tell the truth? Drop the word room in the comments if this story reached something real in you. And if you are new here, subscribe. Every week I share stories about family, about truth, and about the moments when honesty changes everything. I will see you in the next one. Kayla's Dark Truth.